NBA Youngboy's top shooter just got booked for 10 counts of attempted murder.
One of those individuals, Kentrell Galden, better known as rapper NBA Youngboy.
And this goofy might have just cooked YB's whole operation. Lil Pap, the same crash dummy who beat a murder case for taking out G money after doing 5 years, is back behind bars, and word is the feds are looking real hard at who's been sending these hits. This ain't just another street beef going wrong. This could be the RICO case that brings down the whole NBA gang. OTS Lil Pap was NBA Youngboy's most loyal soldier, the type of dude who'd catch a body without asking questions. But here's what really went down. Homie wasn't family, he was just a crash dummy they kept around to handle the dirty work. The recent arrest didn't just put another shooter behind bars, it exposed how NBA really operates and why the feds might finally have enough to connect YB to multiple hits. To understand how this whole situation spiraled out of control, we gotta go back to where it all started in the trenches of Baton Rouge. Let's rewind to the mid-2000s in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Back then, the city was a war zone with different crews battling for territory and respect. OTS Lil Pap was born and raised on 46th and North Street, what they call the Wreck, one of the most dangerous blocks in BR. This YN wasn't trying to be no rapper or nothing like that. He was strictly on that street timing from day one. Now, to really understand this story, you gotta know that Pap was older than most of the NBA crew. While Youngboy was still a shorty trying to figure out his sound, Pap was already moving different in them streets. He wasn't looking for fame or fortune. Homie was comfortable in the trenches and never wanted to leave. Baton Rouge in the 2000s was different, fam. The city had been dealing with gang violence since the early 2000s, but it really escalated when Lil Boosie started making noise. Boosie's success brought attention to the city, but it also brought jealousy and competition. Different crews were trying to establish themselves, and that's where all the politics started. You had TBG, Top Boy Gorillas, which was started by Lil Ivy before he got killed in 2005. Then you had BBG, Bottom Boy Gorillas, who were TBG's main ops. The whole city was divided between different sets, and everybody was trying to prove they were the realest. But here's where it gets crazy. When NBA Youngboy was around 15 years old, he started hanging out with G Money and the rest of the TBG crew. Youngboy was best friends with G Money's younger brother, and eventually he started rapping with G and the rest of the crew. This was before NBA even existed. Youngboy was just another young dude trying to make it in the rap game. Pap saw something in Youngboy that other people didn't see yet. While most people were sleeping on YB's music, Pap was out here telling everybody in Baton Rouge about this young rapper who was about to blow up. Not because they were tight like that, but because he saw an opportunity. Pap was out here telling everybody in Baton Rouge about this young rapper who was about to blow up. He even put Scotty Kane onto Youngboy's music when Scotty was way bigger than YB at the time. This is important because Pap's role was never about the music, it was about protection. While Youngboy was in the studio or performing, Pap was making sure nothing happened to the Golden Goose. As Pap himself said in interviews, "We ain't got no money to pay for security, so I gotta make sure nothing happened to him." That's bread and butter right there. The relationship was always transactional from the jump. Pap wasn't Youngboy's homie from childhood or nothing like that. He was an older dude from the streets who recognized that this young rapper could be his ticket to something bigger. And Youngboy needed someone like Pap around because the streets of Baton Rouge were dangerous, especially for someone trying to make it out. But that's not even the crazy part. See, Pap's loyalty to NBA wasn't based on friendship, it was business. He knew Youngboy was going to be the ticket out the hood for everybody around him, so he played his position as the enforcer. According to sources close to the situation, Pap was the type of dude who'd slide first and ask questions later. When NBA had problems, Pap handled them. When ops got too comfortable, Pap reminded them why they shouldn't be. This YN was really about that action, no cap. Here's where it gets real though. The relationship between Pap and the NBA crew was always transactional. While other members were considered family, Pap was more like hired muscle. He got put in position to make money and handle business, but he was never really in the inner circle like that. The dynamic started changing when Youngboy began having problems with TBG. See, Youngboy wasn't getting the shine he thought he deserved from the crew, and that's when he decided to split off and start NBA with his brother OG3 and some other homies. This wasn't just a business decision, it was personal. Before he left TBG, Youngboy dropped his first mixtape with them called Life Before Fame. But after he started his NBA label, Youngboy dropped his Mind of a Menace mixtape and allegedly sent the first shots at TBG by calling them jealous of his success. On the intro to the project, he rapped about how they started to envy him after he got a name off Life Before Fame. But the real drama started when family got involved. Youngboy's cousin Bazilla repped BBG, and they had been ops with TBG because Youngboy was rocking with TBG. According to rumors, Bazilla actually wanted to kill Youngboy back in the day, and G Money allegedly rapped about protecting Youngboy from his own cousin. Fast forward to 2016 and the whole dynamic in Baton Rouge started shifting. NBA, Youngboy was beefing with his old crew TBG, and things were getting heated. The situation that really changed everything was when Youngboy's cousin Bazilla got killed on November 2nd, 2016. Bazilla was beefing with a dude named Dusa, who reps a crew called Forever Loyalty. Forever Loyalty is tight with TBG, and when Bazilla got killed, rumors started flying that Dusa and his crew were involved with the hit. That's when everything really changed in Baton Rouge and bodies started dropping like crazy. Just a couple hours after Bazilla died, Youngboy and two of his homies went sliding into op territory and let off shots at some dudes they thought were involved with Bazilla's death. Youngboy was allegedly hanging out of the whip letting off shots with an assault rifle, and during the shootout, his homie NBA Joe ended up getting hit in the neck. According to reports, just hours after Bazilla died, Youngboy and his crew went sliding, and Pap was right there with them. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about sending a message that NBA wasn't to be played with. But the situation that really put Pap on the map was the G Money situation. Now, G Money wasn't just some random op. This dude used to be tight with Youngboy. They came up together in TBG, and G actually helped put Youngboy on in the beginning. But when YB left TBG to start NBA, things got personal real quick. The beef escalated when G Money started responding to Youngboy's disses. While Youngboy was fighting his attempted murder case after sliding for Bazilla, G Money linked up with Pablo El Chapo for a Youngboy diss track called WNBA Smoke. This was G Money finally clapping back at Youngboy after all the disses Youngboy had sent. Then G Money linked up with Scotty Kane on the track Ain't Gone Ride, which took the beef to another level. Youngboy and Scotty were cool back in the day and had music together, but then they started beefing and Scotty allegedly pulled a pistol on him when they were in the studio together. Let me break it down for you. The beef between NBA Youngboy and G Money wasn't just about music or territory. This was personal, and it all started with family drama. G Money had been messing around with Youngboy's sister back when they were still cool, and when their relationship went south, G decided to air it out publicly. The disrespect started building up over time. Youngboy had been sending shots at TBG on multiple tracks, but G Money wasn't responding at first. He was trying to stay focused on his own music and career, but when Youngboy kept pushing, G finally decided to clap back. In that infamous Say Cheese interview, G Money basically disrespected YB's whole family. He talked about hooking up with Youngboy's sister and threw it in his face like it was nothing. When the interviewer asked about the beef, G said, "He mad about his sister too though. Yeah, I had fucked her a long time ago. He wasn't really tripping on it back then. You know what I'm saying? He calling me big brother and she T." That type of disrespect don't fly in the streets, especially when you're talking about somebody's family. But G Money didn't stop there. He kept going on Instagram Live, dissing NBA and making it clear he wasn't scared of nobody. The crazy part is, G was doing all this from the same studio where he'd eventually get killed, basically giving the ops his location every time he went live. After G Money did the interview, the beef with Youngboy really kicked off. They started sending shots at each other on Instagram, and G Money told Youngboy he's not impressed with him. Then Youngboy clapped back and said G Money knows where he lives and to stop playing on Instagram. That's when G Money dropped the most disrespectful track yet, Industry. On the song, he aired Youngboy out and rapped about how Youngboy switched up on TBG. He even sent another shot about Youngboy's sister and said, "Your sister swallowed nuts, so I never kissed her. But I fucked with her, so I never dissed her." But the most disrespectful part was when G Money said he couldn't kill Youngboy because he knew his mom, Shter. He rapped, "You a BT, I know the real you. You Shter son, I can't kill you. Never let a nigga steal you. Switched up, I can't feel you." G Money kept the pressure up and dropped a remix of Bodak Yellow a week later. He sent more shots at Youngboy for switching up on TBG and rapped about how NBA used to claim TBG, but switched up when they got a bag. Then G Money went live on Instagram and called NBA Youngboy out again. He was talking about how Youngboy kept switching up, wearing different crew shirts and claiming different sets. G said he couldn't beef with anyone like that, and then one of G's homies told Youngboy, "How you supposed to go against me? How you think you gonna do that? You won't survive." On September 9th, 2017, G Money went to that studio on Dallas Drive to record a feature. His baby mama was pregnant, they had just bought a new house, and life was looking good for him. Earlier that day, G was helping her move stuff to the new crib, and later they met up for lunch. G was supposed to go back to their house and move more stuff, but then he decided to go to the studio to take care of a feature he was supposed to record. But according to the streets, NBA had already put a bag on his head through Youngboy's manager Big Dump. According to rumors, Youngboy's manager Big Dump put a bag on G Money's head after he started clapping back at Youngboy so hard. Here's what really went down that night. G Money finished recording and walked out the studio around 11 p.m. The shooters were waiting for him, and as soon as he stepped outside, they started letting off shots. There are videos of G in the studio that night just a couple hours before he died, and rumors say that's how the ops knew where to find him. As soon as G Money walked out the door, the ops started letting off shots and left him dying right outside the studio. His homie Fat Chapo was in the studio with him, and after he heard the shots, he ran out and saw G Money on the ground. He called 911 to get an ambulance out there, then he called up G's baby mama and let her know what happened. G's mom and baby mama both rushed to the scene, but by the time they got there, the cops already had everything roped off and they weren't allowed near G Money. The paramedics did everything they could to save him, but G Money was tragically pronounced dead at the scene. The aftermath was wild. Fans showed up and found a bloody pillow next to where G died, which started rumors that the shooters threw a pillow at him and said, "Go to sleep." Whether that's true or not, it became part of the legend, and Youngboy even referenced it in later songs like Step on Shter, where he rapped, "Like lay your bed, I throw the pillow, the police after all my names." But here's the thing. While everybody was focused on who pulled the trigger, the real question was who ordered the hit. And according to the streets, that order came from the top of NBA. The investigation into G Money's murder moved fast. Within months, the police had their main suspect, OTS Lil Pap. The evidence against him was solid enough that he got charged with second-degree murder, and it looked like he was cooked. But here's where it gets interesting. Pap's case wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. According to court documents, the prosecution's main evidence was that Pap was allegedly in a car with the actual shooter. They couldn't prove he pulled the trigger, but they said he was there when it happened. The whole case was built on circumstantial evidence and witness testimony. The police claimed they had surveillance footage and cell phone records that placed Pap at the scene, but they never had a smoking gun that directly connected him to pulling the trigger. Pap maintained his innocence the whole time, and even G Money's own people started saying the police got it wrong. Fredo Bang, who was G's closest homie, went on record saying Pap wasn't the shooter. In an interview with Dirty Glove Bastard, Fredo said he felt Pap was innocent and that the real shooter was still out there. But somebody had to take the fall, and Pap was the easiest target. He was known to be NBA's enforcer, he had the reputation for handling business, and he fit the profile of someone who would carry out a hit like this. The streets were watching the whole case unfold. Pap was locked up for 2 years before his case went to trial, and during that time, the war between NBA and TBG kept escalating. Bodies were dropping on both sides, and it was clear that G Money's death had started something that wasn't gonna end anytime soon. In 2019, Pap took a plea deal and got sentenced to 5 years for accessory after the fact. Now, for somebody who was originally charged with murder, getting 5 years is a hell of a deal. That made people think either Pap had some serious information to trade or the case against him wasn't as strong as they thought. But according to Pap himself, he never cooperated with law enforcement. He said he took the plea deal because he didn't want to gamble with his life at trial, especially in Louisiana where they're known for giving out harsh sentences. As he put it in interviews, "I got 5 years on the table. I'ma take that. I'm from Iraq, man. 5 years on the hat. You drop it down. Even though I'm innocent, I'm with that." Pap did about 3 years of that sentence, splitting time between state and federal prison. And according to him, he walked the yard with no problems and never had to check in or get protective custody. His paperwork was clean, which means he didn't cooperate with law enforcement. During his time locked up, Pap had to deal with people coming at him behind the G Money situation. He said he had a couple fights with dudes who were trying to get revenge for their people, but he never backed down or checked out of general population. The federal time was different though. In the feds, there's more politics and you have to be careful about who you associate with. Pap said he was in the Louisiana car, which meant he was grouped with other inmates from Louisiana. The feds operate on a different level. If your paperwork isn't right, you can't live on the compound at all. They'll run you up top to protective custody and you'll stay there until you get shipped somewhere else. But Pap's paperwork was solid. He never snitched, never cooperated, and never gave up any information about who really ordered the hit on G Money. That earned him respect even from people who didn't like him. But while Pap was locked up, the war between NBA and TBG kept escalating. Big Dump, who allegedly put the bag on G Money's head, got killed in 2018. According to the streets, two TBG affiliates named Lit Yoshi and Boulevard Quick allegedly slid into his hood and killed him as revenge for G Money. BLVD Quick was really tight with G Money before he died. He was locked up too when G got killed, and he said that he stomped out Youngboy's brother OG3 behind bars when he heard the news. When Boulevard Quick got out of jail, he hopped in the booth and started sending shots at Youngboy. But then, in November 2018, NBA allegedly clapped back and left another body dead in the street. Boulevard Quick was found shot to death outside of his apartment in Baton Rouge. According to rumors, a dude Youngboy was tight with named Duty Black knew somebody who lived in the same apartment complex as Boulevard Quick, and that's how he got the drop on him. The cycle of violence just kept going. Every time one side took a loss, they retaliated. Every time someone got killed, their homies went looking for revenge. And through it all, the feds were watching and taking notes. When Pap came home in 2024, he should have learned his lesson. He beat a murder case, did his time, and had a chance to start fresh. But instead of staying low-key, this goofy went right back to his old ways. The first sign that Pap hadn't changed was when he started going live on Instagram, bumping NBA Youngboy songs and talking that same street talk that got him locked up in the first place. He was posting videos from the same blocks where all the drama started, showing that he was still comfortable in the trenches. According to sources, Pap never really left the crash dummy lifestyle behind. He was still hanging around NBA affiliates, still on that same timing that got him locked up in the first place. Even though he had started his own label called OTS, Only the Shooters, he was still moving like he was NBA's enforcer. The warning signs were there from the jump. Pap was getting into beef on social media, threatening other rappers, and making it clear that he was still about that action. When Dallas rapper Montana 700 dissed Youngboy, Pap sent a warning to all of Dallas, saying they better not play with YB while he's on tour. Then Pap started going back and forth with Fredo Bang on Instagram. He called Fredo dirty and loud and said he was doing anything to make it to the blogs. Fredo clapped back, but Pap made it clear he wasn't backing down from nobody. The situation got worse when Pap saw a video of his little brother, NBA Ben 10, with a black eye. Pap went off on Instagram Live saying that anybody he calls his brother, he's gonna go crazy for them. He was heated that Ben 10 got jumped and his other brothers didn't help him. But the real problem was that Pap never learned how to handle conflict without violence. He was still thinking like a crash dummy, still believing that every problem could be solved with a gun, and that mentality is what led to his downfall. In February 2026, all that street activity caught up with him again. Here's what happened. Pap allegedly got into some type of domestic situation that escalated way beyond what it should have. Instead of handling it like a grown man, he decided to grab his gun and shoot up a house with 10 people inside. According to police reports, Pap fired multiple shots into a residence during what they're calling a domestic incident. We're talking about a full-blown drive-by shooting in broad daylight, with innocent people inside who could have been killed. The details of what led to the shooting are still unclear, but sources say it was over some personal drama that had nothing to do with gang business. This wasn't NBA versus TBG. This wasn't about protecting Youngboy. This was just Pap letting his emotions get the best of him and making a stupid decision that could cost him the rest of his life. The police arrested Pap and hit him with 10 counts of attempted first-degree murder. That's not some minor charge you can plea bargain away. That's life in prison type of time. In Louisiana, attempted first-degree murder carries a sentence of 10 to 50 years per count. With 10 counts, Pap is looking at potentially 500 years in prison. And the crazy part is, this wasn't even gang-related. This was personal drama that he let get out of hand. After surviving a murder case and doing 5 years, Pap threw his life away over some domestic bullshit that could have been handled a million different ways. But here's where it gets really dangerous for NBA Youngboy. The feds are starting to connect the dots. They're looking at the pattern of violence around NBA, the bodies that keep dropping, and who's been giving the orders. Pap might have been the trigger man, but everybody knows he wasn't making these decisions on his own. The RICO Act allows prosecutors to go after entire organizations, not just individual shooters. If they can prove that NBA operates as a criminal enterprise, with Youngboy at the top giving orders and crash dummies like Pap carrying them out, then everybody could get swept up in federal charges. And let's keep it 100. Pap's loyalty only goes so far. He already took one murder case and did his time without snitching. But now he's looking at potentially spending the rest of his life in prison for 10 counts of attempted murder. That's the type of pressure that makes even the most loyal soldiers start thinking about cooperation. The feds have been building cases against rap crews for years now. They got YFN Lucci on RICO charges, they're going after Young Thug and YSL, and they've been watching NBA for a long time. Pap's latest arrest just gives them more ammunition to paint NBA as a criminal organization. This situation exposes the real problem with how these rap crews operate. They keep crash dummies around to handle the dirty work, but when those crash dummies get caught, it puts the whole organization at risk. The relationship between rappers and their street affiliates has always been complicated. On one hand, these rappers need protection and credibility in the streets. On the other hand, keeping violent people around creates liability that can destroy everything they've worked for. Pap was never really NBA family. He was a tool they used when they needed someone to handle business, and now that tool is broken and could potentially be used against them. The feds love flipping low-level guys to get to the bigger fish, and Pap knows where all the bodies are buried. Think about it from Pap's perspective. He gave everything for NBA, his freedom, his future, his life, and what did he get in return? He got used as a crash dummy and thrown away when he became a liability. While Youngboy is making millions and living in mansions, Pap is sitting in a cell facing life in prison. For NBA Youngboy, this couldn't come at a worse time. He's already dealing with federal charges and trying to stay out of prison. Having his former enforcer caught up in another shooting just gives prosecutors more ammunition to paint him as the leader of a violent criminal organization. The pattern is clear to anyone who's been watching. Bodies drop around NBA, and the same people keep getting arrested for the violence. First it was Pap for G-Money, then other NBA affiliates for other shootings. At some point, the feds are gonna say, this isn't a coincidence, it's a conspiracy. RICO cases are built on patterns of criminal activity. Prosecutors don't need to prove that the leader directly ordered every crime. They just need to show that the organization engaged in a pattern of illegal activity to further its goals. And with NBA, that pattern is becoming harder to ignore. The streets of Baton Rouge have been watching this whole situation unfold. And everybody knows what time it is. When your top shooter gets arrested twice for major violent crimes, it's not a coincidence, it's a pattern. And patterns are exactly what federal prosecutors use to build RICO cases. But the real tragedy is how this affects the community. Baton Rouge has been dealing with violence for decades, and situations like this just perpetuate the cycle. Young dudes see Pap's story and think that's what loyalty looks like, catching bodies for people who don't really care about you. The music industry has a responsibility too. Labels and streaming platforms profit off this street content, but they don't deal with the consequences when the violence spills over into real life. They want the authenticity and the street credibility, but they don't want to address the human cost. And here's the thing, even if Pap doesn't cooperate, his arrest still damages NBA. It shows that the organization attracts violent people and that violence follows them wherever they go. That's exactly the type of evidence prosecutors use in RICO cases. The timing couldn't be worse for Youngboy either. He's been trying to clean up his image, focusing on his music, staying out of trouble. But having his former enforcer arrested for 10 counts of attempted murder brings all that street drama right back to his doorstep. One thing's for sure, this ain't over. The feds are watching, the streets are talking, and everybody's waiting to see who's gonna be the next one to fall. In Baton Rouge, loyalty only goes so far. And when you're facing life in prison, even the most solid dudes start thinking about their options. The real question is whether this will be a wake-up call for other young dudes in similar situations. Will they see Pap's story and realize that being a crash dummy isn't worth it? Or will they think that Pap just got unlucky and that they can do it better? History suggests it'll be the latter. The streets always need new crash dummies, and there's always gonna be young dudes willing to fill that role. They see the money, the respect, the reputation, but they don't see the consequences until it's too late. That's the real story behind NBA Youngboy's top shooter getting arrested. It ain't just about one crash dummy making bad decisions. It's about a whole system that's built on violence and loyalty. And what happens when that system starts falling apart? And for YB, this might just be the beginning of his biggest problems yet. The feds have been patient, but they've been watching. Every arrest, every shooting, every body that drops, they're taking notes and building their case. And when they finally decide to move, it's gonna be swift and devastating, and Pap's arrest might be the domino that starts the whole thing falling down. Because when crash dummies start facing life in prison, loyalty becomes a luxury they can't afford, and that's when the real game begins.